Hello, Professor. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can now. Let me see if I'm open. Yeah. Okay.
Oh,
Sorry
good
for the
morning.
delay, but there was some problem with your password. But anyway, we've got it.
So sorry about that. I might have sent you the wrong one.
No, it's just Zoom does this occasionally.
So good morning or good afternoon for you, I suppose, and a very warm welcome to you on behalf of AI Policy Lab to our podcast series on what is today, I believe, a very pertinent topic, which is AI and Sustainable Development Goals. I will be starting to record now, if you are fine with that.
Yep.
And then the podcast will be published on our website, and I will be sending you, of course, the link as soon as that is published and all research we do afterwards. I am Luigi Fiora. I'm a research associate with the labs, and I'm currently based in Turin, Italy. A Policy Labs is a global initiative which has been set up with a vision to explore emerging technologies and assess the impact of intelligent automation, digitalization, artificial intelligence on policymaking, implementation, and governance. Our primary focus is to explore the role of AI for public goods and for social good. So, given the rise of automation and the use of artificial intelligence and other emerging technologies, it became very important to ask ourselves and to ask experts such as yourself, which is the whole focus of this podcast series. So, with only one decade left to achieve the 17 UN Sustainable Development Goals, what role can AI play in these, if any? And will the new generation of technology take us closer or away from our global goals? So, as part of this program, this podcast series is being conducted with the aim to understand the potential of AI in meeting these goals and also understanding the challenges that these pose. So, to introduce the expert that we have with us today, we have Professor Findlay, which is Director of the Center on AI and Data Governance at the Singapore Management University. Thank you very much for being with us.
Pleasure.
So our first question, in your view, is AI acting as an enabler or an inhibitor for achieving the SDG on education?
Well, if we look at what's happened during the pandemic, the switch to online education has been the answer to social distancing. And in many respects, that's been the limit of the way in which online technologies have been used. The extent to which AI-assisted technologies add to that, incorporate that, give benefit through that process is yet to be fully realised. In fact, interactive education platforms are still quite primitive. But the thing to remember about AI-assisted technologies in any area of social development is that when we're looking at online technologies assisted by AI, then in that situation, you need the internet. And if the internet, as the UN has found, is not available to around about 50% of those individuals who might want to access it worldwide, then you've already knocked out half the globe from having the benefit of AI-assisted technologies. Now, does that mean AI-assisted technologies can't work without the internet? Well, that's not true. They can operate in many ways, not dependent on the internet. But the most fundamental online educational advances have come about as a consequence of the internet. And so two important variables are required to make education AI-assisted both equitable and quality. The first is that people have access to the technology which they can use, and secondly, that people have access to the internet through which that technology can be applied. And we've found this even in the North world, that in fact, in many situations, poorer families, those families that have less resilient technology, that don't have the best internet connections, have a more demanding domestic environment, are losing out when it comes to online education opportunities.
So, as you cited this missing out, do you feel like these investments that are being made in the field of AI are increasing the comparative disadvantages of those people that are, either too poor or too remote to access the necessary hardware? And you talked about the internet, but I'm not only talking about the internet, because you need also some kind of device, which might be a computer, might also be a computer shared with other people, but it still requires some level of connection. So, do you feel that these investments are in fact increasing inequality rather than reducing it, which is one of the main goals of the SDG?
Well, they are increasing inequality, but they don't have to. If you look at the difference between access to smartphones and access to internet-based technologies, you'll find, in fact, that the coverage of smartphones worldwide is much more than you'd find with the coverage of, say, sophisticated computer technology. Even in very primitive parts of the world, there is access to basic smartphone technology. And so I think what we have to do is we have to start saying, look, what are the cost-effective technologies that we can roll out in areas in the world which are not otherwise benefited by sophisticated technology? Because there can be very good education programs channeled through very basic phone technologies, as well as through online internet-based computer-founded technologies. That's the first thing to remember. The second thing to remember is that basic technologies in terms of educational opportunity and access and quality programming are not that expensive and not that difficult to maintain, but they're much more expensive than people in the South world can afford. So what I think we have to do with AI tech is to make it accessible through a spread of technologies that are designed for people to benefit from in a social good sense, rather than the technology companies benefiting from them in terms of a market profit sense. And that's going to require aid investment and strategic planning.
So, to move on to a different kind of inequality, what do you think of the fact that the future educators and experts in a sector that's going to be so important are mostly male and also mostly from, well, first world countries, which, like, recent studies say that less than 20% of your colleagues, of professors studying these aspects, are women. And it is, of course, representative of a wider issue with STEM subjects such as engineering, etc. But how do you think this could be addressed, if at all?
Well, I think there were quite major advances decades back to try and balance the gender divide, which you've rightly pointed to, in the tertiary sector. But the problem is that those were short-lived achievements, because what's happened, particularly in the North world, and to a lesser extent now in the South world, is that universities have moved away from a scholarship model and towards a for-profit model. And so if universities are more geared now to the fees that they can generate and to the size of their student population, at the same time not investing as vigorously as they should in young academic professionals, then you're going to find that North world, South world, across the globe, there's going to be a gradual decimation of the tertiary sector. And I can tell you now, whether it's basic tertiary technology or sort of tech-focused training, right through to professional training, young scholars are not going into the academic career South world as well. I know for sure that with my experience throughout Southeast Asia, less and less quality professionals, young professionals, are going into the education sector, either because the returns, the salaries are not as good as they were, and more importantly, job security is really quite frail. So I think governments need to invest vigorously in the tertiary sector, not just the top end. not just doctors, lawyers, AI technicians, and forget about social scientists, forget about school teacher training, forget about nursing. We've got to have a genuine commitment from government and from the private sector to invest in education at the tertiary level. And that's the only way that you're going to see more equitable demographics in the tertiary sector, because people need, who are coming into that sector, to feel secure and to feel valued.
Thank you. So, and this is our last question. The collection, use, and abuse of data that is used to, to train AI, that is fed into the AI for it to learn to do its job, may expose people to risks they're not even aware existed, such as the misuse of their data, or the fact that data are sometimes put in banks or in data banks, or sold from one part to the other. What steps could be taken to mitigate these risks?
You'd be shocked to know the extent to which personal data is being abused by those who have turned personal data, into a market commodity. A simple example is if you use platform economies to deliver food to your house, or to take you in a private hire vehicle, the information associated with those transactions then gets sold off as secondary data by the platform owners, and you know nothing about it. Now, some people may not care about that, but certainly, as the pandemic has showed, people are extremely worried about what happens to their personal health data, over which they seem to have very little control. I can tell you the answer. It's simple, but it's challenging. The answer is to build into AI information loops that tell data subjects when their personal data is being accessed. And this is not difficult to do. In fact, those people who maintain the big databases and make money out of it spend a lot of time making sure that we know nothing about our personal data. Now, AI can be the villain in this, or it can be the solution. And one of the solutions, very simply, is to provide information looping so the data subjects know when the information that they produced in a daily transaction or whatever they might be doing is in fact identified as theirs, and that they have some opportunity for being able to say how that data is used. Because very simply, data can't be produced without humans. Humans produce data, and humans use data and feed it into AI, into deep learning, and then get the benefit on the way back from that. But unfortunately, the majority of situations now where personal data is being fed into AI technology is done for profit and not for social good. So I would advocate a vigorous requirement in both the government sector and in the private sector to ensure not just that access to personal data is protected, but more that people who are the data subjects have any idea of the way in which their data is being used. And AI can do that.
Right. Thank you very much, Professor, for taking part in this. I will, of course, keep you updated on any developments.
It's a pleasure.
Yeah. Keep in touch. Thank you again.
Hope it goes well. Bye-bye.
You too. Goodbye.